Hi, I'm Dr. Robert Teal. I'm president of Doctors Research Inc., the United States distributor for Food Research International food brand vitamins and minerals. Today, this is the fifth part of our series on natural versus synthetic vitamins. But this time we're going to talk about minerals. Now, believe it or not, almost all minerals sold in supplements in the United States and many other countries are essentially ground up rocks with acids added to them. Huh? Yes, ground up rocks with acids added to them. Dirt, basically. How do I know this? Because that's what this book says, the Merck Index of Biologicals. This is not to be confused with the Merck Manual, which is on diagnostics. This is on chemicals and explains basically where a lot of nutrients, so-called, come from. Even though companies will put natural on the label, it's true that substances such as calcium carbonate, magnesium carbonate are natural substances for plants. That's why we have the food chain. Plants are supposed to ingest minerals, convert them so human beings can eat them. Well, since all you doctors have taken chemistry, let's give you a brief refresher. You know, when two substances get together of two different elements, they can sometimes form a new molecule, and the molecule changes the structure of the particular elements. For example, while hydrogen and oxygen are both gases at normal temperature, room temperature, together, when they combine, they create H2O, or water, which is liquid. So it's a completely different compound, even though it's made up of those two substances. Well, interestingly, that's basically what happens with foods. Plants ingest substances such as magnesium carbonate. But when they ingest it, when it comes through the roots or the hyphae, what happens is, by this time, it breaks off the carbonate. So in food, there is no such thing as a molecule, or no significant number of them, of magnesium carbonate. In a food, magnesium exists as magnesium. Now, what does it do? You say it's got to attach to something. Yes, it does. It actually attaches to lipids, carbs, or amino acids. And so what happens is we therefore have something that's not a rock, it's not a mineral salt, it's not the same chemical compound found in food, but instead it is food. It is part of food. And, by the way, foods contain something known as protein chaperones. Those chaperones help the body utilize minerals and help for the absorption of minerals. Interestingly, however, mineral salts don't have such a substance. And so when people are consuming mineral salts, which they do in many multiple vitamin mineral formulas, they're not getting the protein chaperones that are needed, so it's got to be stolen from some other portion of the body. Not too long back, actually, the Nobel Prize in Medicine was given to a doctor who concluded that minerals are transported with protein chaperones, and those do exist in foods. Yet, despite that coming out, people still eat ground up rocks with acids added to them, usually, in their supplements, and they consider those are food. One of the advantages of food versus non-food minerals is they tend to be absorbed better, they tend to be utilized better. A lot of people have come to our clinic and they've wondered about calcium. They say, oh, I need 2,000 milligrams of calcium or 1,500 or some ridiculous number. Well, did you know that in countries and cultures that get like 300 or less milligrams of plant calcium in a day, they have a lower incidence of osteoporosis in the United States? Yes. Because of that, by the way, this is one reason why the World Health Organization does not have a world standard now for calcium, because some countries get hardly any and they don't get osteoporosis. In countries such as the United States, they get a lot and they still get osteoporosis. Now, true, there's cultural things such as walking and exercising that play a role. But when someone comes to my office, for example, and I might recommend something like the CalMag complex, which I take, this contains food calcium in the same form as found in plants, and it's got other supporting factors for absorption. For example, it also contains magnesium, it contains vitamin D, and things such as that. Because bones are more than one substance. And as far as absorption, calcium in foods seems to be better absorbed than calcium in rocks. At least that's what the studies I've taken a look at have said. And for some information on those studies, you can go to our website, www.doctorsresearch.com, and there's more information along that line. One study actually found that calcium in food was 7 times more effective in raising serum ionic calcium levels than calcium carbonate. In addition to that, do you know what calcium carbonate is used for, according to the Merck Index? Just to let you know, and by the way, doctors, tell your patients to stop eating industrial chemicals. If you don't have this particular brochure, you might want to get it. Because I'm going to read you a couple things that are from the Merck that I put in here. Calcium carbonate is the rock known as limestone, or chalk. It's used to manufacture paint, rubber, plastic, ceramics, putty, polishes, insecticides, and inks. And it's used as a filler for adhesives, matches, pencils, crayons, linoleum, insulating compounds, and welding rods. And this is actually the basis for most forms of calcium. For example, let's say calcium chloride, they start with calcium carbonate. Calcium citrate, they usually start with calcium carbonate and add lactic and citric acids to them. That's typically how these things are developed. What about magnesium? Magnesium is kind of interesting. Magnesium carbonate is a rock, and it also has a variety of industrial uses. I suppose I could read a couple of them. It's used as an acid, a laxative, and a cathartic. But you won't find that in too many nutritional supplements. What you're going to find instead is magnesium oxide. Why? Because they take magnesium carbonate, they heat it to about 800 degrees Celsius. It shrinks it to make it smaller so it fits in a pill. Some people are taking that as a magnesium supplement. But that's not as absorbed or retained nearly as well as food magnesium. Furthermore, there was an old edition of the nurse's PDR that said, don't use magnesium oxide as a supplement because it's not retained as well. But people do that anyway. Iron. Iron in foods is absorbed better, and iron in foods does not seem to be constipating like the rock irons. And one thing that's interesting about iron, the human body has multiple different ways to absorb iron depending on where you get it. And I suppose you can get it from your cast iron pan, but actually it's absorbed better from plants. Chromium. Chromium is one of the favorite nutrients I like to talk about. Chromium GTF, which is a glucose tolerance factor form of chromium, is what the body utilizes. It's only available through nutritional yeast. It's the only way it's produced. They haven't been able to synthetically come up with it. And it's the one that's best for diabetics, best for blood sugar. Now, some people might want to use such substances such as chromium picolinate. And that was invented by a human being, by the way. And while it has some absorption advantages over other forms, it's still not a food, and it's not the GTF form of chromium. Now, how can you identify when you look at a label if a mineral is a food or if it's synthetic, or ground up rock with an acid added to it? This is pretty easy. In foods, as I mentioned before, there are no mineral salts. So, calcium is what's in food, magnesium is what's in food, iron is what's in food, manganese, phosphorus, selenium are all what's in food. Yet, mineral salts have two words: calcium carbonate, magnesium oxide, chromium picolinate, zinc oxide, zinc carbonate. Those are all two words, and those two-word descriptions are a clue that you're talking about a mineral salt. Now, there is one exception, and I mentioned that before, and that's chromium GTF. Other than the expression chromium GTF, I am unaware of any two-word description that describes a food mineral. So if your patients are wondering if they should use, if their formulas they're bringing in you contain ground up rocks, if there are two-word descriptions of the minerals anywhere on the label, you can be pretty sure that it started with a rock with some acids added to it or something else, but it's an industrially processed rock that's been put in supplements. And again, while those are foods for plants, those are not foods for human beings. For more information on food minerals, there's an article at our website called The Truth About Minerals and Supplements that's at www.doctorsresearch.com. That's www.doctorsresearch.com, and I invite you and your patients to read it, and I invite them also, and all of people, if they're interested in nutritional supplements, to get nutritional supplementation from foods and products that are made 100% food.